Okay, European history scholars, today we are going to talk about Romanticism. In this presentation, we'll focus specifically on the art of the time period. This art has several important themes, and don't worry, we're going to return to them again at the end of the presentation. But as you're looking at the art when we're going through things, I want you to be thinking about the idea of the individual is small compared to the power of nature and God. However, the struggle against power and authority is noble. Doing what is right is good, and so the individuals should still do this. Sometimes that creates this hopeless feeling that they might have, but we're going to do it anyway. Uh, and romantics idealize the world around them. Okay. So those are some of the themes we want to look for in this presentation. All right, today we're going to start off with Spanish political painting. And so this and the next image that we'll see are from Francisco de Goya y Lucientes. They were painted in 1814 and they're part of a set. And so one of the interesting things is, where does this fit into the good old hierarchy of genres that we have? The most important paintings, because this is actually a huge painting when we look at it. So why is it important? Well, it's a historical event, and it is called the 2nd of May, 1814, and it details the uprising of the people of Madrid against the French forces. So here in this particular corner, we have our Frenchmen, and these are the Spaniards, the common Spaniards who are rising up against them. So it fits into the tradition of historical painting because it is an event. It doesn't have to be distant history. That's going to be an interesting kind of a change for us. If we compare this to what came before us, neoclassicism, if you think about the good old Death of Marat, he's dead, he's sitting in a tub. It's this classical Pietà type pose. He's the hero of the revolution. Okay, and that's Jacques-Louis David in France. Here, however, what we have is this sense of movement. I mean, one of the things that's absolutely amazing here is not the geometric shapes, but the sense of movement. This guy right here is coming down this way. We have angles that are leading up to these figures that are above the action. We have the sword that brings us back. We have this tremendous light and dark contrast here in the middle as well. So we're seeing lots of kinds of movement and action. This isn't a static thing. It's intended to reproduce the idea that you might be there. Okay, we have as well a sense of this individual looking across here, this guy's about to get stabbed, we have terrible things that might be occurring, and we really feel like we're in the moment. And that's going to be part of that heroic struggle, because one of the things that is going to happen as we begin to go through this is that the Spanish are going to rise up, but it does not last. What we have here is an absolutely wonderful, wonderful painting. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, who is the figure highlighted in white? It's an allegory, so think about the white. All right, outstretched arms, facing execution by an imperial force. Remember, these are our French soldiers here, an imperial force. Okay, we notice as well the praying figure right here, a monk. Have you got it? That's right. So this man, the everyman of Spain, the one person whose face we see highlighted against the faceless masses, okay, against the faceless French troops who are here. Those are Napoleon's forces, by the way. Um, this everyman is the Christ of crucified Jesus Christ. Okay? It is meant to say that Spain has been crucified by these French foreign invaders. Now, as a work of art, what unbelievable contrast between light and dark. If we talk about as well the diagonals that are moving the action through, we have the light here, which leads us up to the guns, and the guns lead us straight to the central figure. If you want to think about your rule of thirds, we've got a 1/3 up here, right? 1/3, and then we've got our 2/3 over here. You can look at it as well this kind of a way. You have this group of figures, you have this group of figures, and then you have this group of figures here. So we have three distinct ways of looking at this kind of a painting, and lots of wonderful things going on in there. All right, now let's look at another kind of a political painting for us here as well. This is Eugene Delacroix, and this is Liberty Leading the People. And this is actually out of the 1830 Revolution in France. Again, we have this sense of being in the moment. This young man is standing up. He's making an engagement with the viewer. He's looking right at you. Okay? We have light and dark, that kind of contrast that we had coming out of the Baroque. Okay? We also have this sense of depth and movement that's different in this. The central figure, though, again, if we're talking about why is this a legitimate painting, it is an allegory. Liberty is not meant to be an individual. She's a symbol of France and an idea. And so, therefore, it rises to the level of this hierarchy of genres as being a more important kind of an idea. And you certainly have all kinds of people moving their eyes up here, looking at her, looking at you, looking over at her, that she is leading these people. And so that is that struggle against authority kind of an idea that people are going to have. All right. Now, this is a wholly different kind of an idea, and you might look at this and say, wow, that's not romanticism as well. But this is Caspar David Friedrich, and if you had to think of one painting that would typify all of romanticism, in many ways, this is the one that I really want you to think about. This is titled Monk by the Sea. And if you notice, this little tiny guy here is our monk. Now, one of the reasons that this is such a remarkable painting for Romanticism is look at the immensity of nature compared to the smallness of man. But it is the monk who is contemplative. And at this time period as well, Romanticism is going to find an ally in religion and in organized religion. And Friedrich is a German, and we are talking about pietism and the revival of the Catholic Church in places like Bavaria. And so people are going to be feeling religion intensely, okay, and reconnecting to the emotions associated with religion. This is an expression of that. It is the religious individual experiencing nature, God's creation, in all of its majesty and in all of its glory. And so it really brings together a lot of the different pieces of romanticism that we look for. The next image is one, again, it's a Goya. I just want to call your attention to this one. Vulcan at the Forge is the official title. Now, these are really laborers here. It is a mythological subject, supposedly, going back to Roman mythology, and therefore appropriate for the hierarchy of genres. But what we really have here are working men and women, the common people. So we begin to see someone again playing at the natural conventions. But we have the physicality of individuals, the light, the dark, the contrast, the drama, calling attention to the labor of the individual, the heroic efforts of the individual. And in that sense, it's a very good thing for us to look at. The next one I wanted to show you was Joseph William Turner. And so Turner is an English painter, and we see again here, in this particular one, this is Hannibal and his army crossing the Alps, okay, and it's in a snowstorm. And if you remember Napoleon crossing the Alps, we had him heroic, okay, and his horse rising up in his arm. That was our neoclassical version of things. Look here, this is Hannibal down here. These are the elephants and his army, and yet compared to the immensity of nature, nothing. Even this mighty army and these tremendous elephants have no chance as well. One of the things, and this is again an absolutely huge painting if you see it, but one of the things that is really remarkable about this again is we have the shaded sun here, but we have this, you know, a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. Why is it romantic? Because there's light at the end of the tunnel, even though there's this tremendous struggle against nature. These curved forms, and especially this cloud, are leading us back down into this action here, which is where hope will reside. This is also a Turner. This is called The Decline of the Carthaginian Empire. Now, Carthage was a great rival of Rome, and so this is a giant historical painting that we have. you begin to see the use of the light and the shadows and people looking off into the distance here. So many people looking at this. We have that softer color palette that is suggesting a sunset, that things are coming to an end. And it is that sort of romantic idea that nothing can last forever, that eventually all things will fade. That's what's really captured in the spirit of this particular painting. This particular image is Theodore Géricault, French painter, and it is called The Raft of the Medusa. And the Medusa was a ship that had uh, run aground and it was lost at sea and several of the people were on this raft and it's a true story and they survived in horrible conditions. You can see somebody dying over here. I mean, he's dead body on this. This is really the interesting part here. These images here represent the frailty of man. We're going to die. And we're not idealized in terms of our bodies, a little bit. I mean, these are still some pretty strong kinds of figures here. You can see the influence of neoclassicism and how we're just drawing the bodies there. Bloated, if we look at this guy's face over here, he's bloated, okay, but his body is still very strong and he's able to carry on. And yet off here we see, love the triangles, right? We love the triangles, religious iconography for us. But off in the distance here, they see a ship on the horizon just out of sight. Okay, the people who are going to come to rescue them. So, despite the frailty of man, despite the odds, despite the overwhelmingness of nature that we have around us, we are going to succeed. There is hope on the horizon. It is just at the moment out of reach. Taking Romanticism into the idea of the idealization, this is John Constable. He's a British painter, and this is one of his most famous works, The Hay Wain. Now, normally we would say landscape is very low down on the hierarchy of genres, but here we are celebrating God's creation. And so it is this perfect nature that we have. This is an idealized version of the way that things look. Uh, this one is Salisbury Cathedral, and I like this one in many ways even better than the other one because it highlights that connection of sort of religion. You know, look at where we have our. Oh boy, is that really a triangle? Terrible drawing on my part, but it's a triangle. And what do we think of when we see triangles? We should think about religion. And what do we have here? It's a cathedral that's there. You have this individual who's noting us, pointing us in the direction of this. So we're definitely calling attention to the work of God in this particular image. We have these cows, which are completely undisturbed, very pastoral. If you want to think about Constable and idealization, you can think about these cows who are having the best life ever. And we have sort of the English countryside with the pathway, so you can see the images moving us around here. You definitely have the notion of the rule of thirds, so it's a brilliant composition. The framing within this here, that there is a cathedral of nature which is emphasizing God's creation in contrast to the cathedral of man, or not contrast, but really in harmony with the cathedral of man. And it's that celebration that we're looking for there. If you want to see a slightly less idealized version of things, then you can begin to move into the next school of things. These cows here are much more realistic. This is Camille Corot. We're going to be moving in towards realism. He's in a transitional school called the Barbizon, but that is where we will pick up our story the next time. So let's revisit our themes again. Our themes here are the individual is small compared to the power of nature and God. The struggle against power and authority is noble. Doing what is right is good. And our romantics were idealizing the world around them. Thank you very much.